Good afternoon, everybody. I am thrilled to be here today with Nadia. Nadia is many things. She is a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a hospice volunteer, a therapeutic touch practitioner, and a sound healer. Welcome to the Living Resource Project, Nadia.
Hello, thank you.
So, the Living Resource Project is a compassionate communities project that serves to remind us that we already have what it takes to show up for the grieving and the dying among us, and that we need each other on this whole journey of life, which includes death. So, I am very inspired by fresh and creative ways to invite people to deepen their intimacy with death and grief. And this is exactly why I have invited you here today, Nadia. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the inspiring work that you do to support the dying and the grieving.
Sure. So my story with supporting the dying starts with I worked as an ICU nurse for some time at one of the major hospitals in the greater Vancouver area. And in my work, I was often supporting people who were at the end of life. And sometimes the conditions weren't necessarily ideal. Sometimes they were emergency situations or they were very sudden in nature. And then, of course, being in a clinical setting, the hospital. Over time, I came to appreciate more the environment and the subtleties of how we can create space around both people who are dying as well as their families. I began to yearn for a little more breathing room with that. So that led me to explore more hospice care as well as palliative nursing care. Probably worth mentioning towards the end of my time in the ICU, I also had the experience of a partner who very suddenly was diagnosed with cancer, which did ultimately take his life. And I was his caregiver. So through that, I also got to experience the medical system from the other side and learn what felt most comfortable for us and what felt nurturing and what things felt really rough and challenging. And so that also was woven into what I do. Prior to that time, I hadn't explored all the adjunctive therapies to support someone beyond what I was doing as a nurse. And so I started to take a lot of courses and learn more and ask questions and explore and built up my toolbox and became what I think of as more of an integrative healer, where I really draw on all of the tools to support someone for their own individual unique experience, because we're all so different, of course. And so whenever I meet a family for the first time, aware that it's an honor to be present with them and that I really need to understand their experience so that from that I can learn how I can best support them. So I don't show up with a menu where this is what I offer and this is what I do. I try to keep it open and let a family lead me. Primarily, I use these skills in my nursing work. However, I am also a hospice volunteer, so they come into play there a lot as well. And I have delved into all sorts of different areas of hospice care and ways that I could be supportive. So I've done art therapy and sound healing and just visiting and grief walks and all sorts of different things. And every experience has been different and a lot of learning.
Wow, that's really a beautiful story. It's so interesting to hear your start as an ICU nurse and seeing the things that you saw and how this personal experience companioning your late partner has really inspired you to meet death more holistically and help people to do that. And what a legacy. Um, in your partner's name that you are living out. It's very touching to hear, and it's really inspiring to hear all of this magical work that you're doing within the system, and really the care that you're taking to really acknowledge the honor of being a companion and really having that curiosity around meeting people's individual needs, which isn't always easy to do in a busy system.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes too, one of the greatest supports that a nurse can offer to a client is helping them to navigate the system, because oftentimes things aren't very obvious and people don't necessarily always know about all the different things that are available. And so part of that is helping people navigate the system and knowing where they can get stuck too, knowing common things that can delay things, I guess.
Mhm.
So being sure to tell people and support them through that can be really valuable.
Yeah, I actually don't really know how people navigate an end of life journey without having an advocate to help them make their way through the system, because there are a lot of places where people can get stuck at the back of lines and waiting, and a lot of it too is just lack of information, like people not being aware of different options and how to access options. And I really think that it's very useful for some people to have access to people that understand the back end of the system, and how to move forward and what's available. So you are a lot of things. You're all the things that we said: nurse, yoga teacher, therapeutic touch practitioner, hospice volunteer, sound healer. So you talked a little bit about how your nursing has evolved into more holistic care for the dying, but I'm curious what led you to healthcare in the first place. Can you tell us a little bit about the path that led you to become a nurse?
Well, I became a nurse initially because I had a strong passion for being of service to people. I never actually sought it out with the intention of doing it as a career. What drew me to it was that I wanted to do Red Cross work, the international relief nursing, which I've never done, but I've always wanted to. And it's never been something I've been able to do because of my family situation. I was a mother at quite a young age, so it was very impractical for me to be going abroad and doing these things. For some reason, some part of my heart and mind and soul just ignored that and thought, well, I'm going to do the training to do it anyway, just in case. And that's actually what got me started with my education to become a nurse. I knew that I was passionate about it. Obviously, once I was done with schooling, there was the practical things of having a student loan and things like that I had to pay off. So then I thought, well, now I'm a nurse. I guess I should work as a nurse.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, actually, I kind of stumbled into it really. But yeah, I knew I was very passionate about wanting to help people. I never was driven towards it as the idea of a job, though. So maybe that's in part has shaped how I see it even now, is that it's something that's very close to my heart, what I'm doing. And I really don't see it as a job for me personally. I see it more as like a calling to be of service to others and support them.
I wonder if that's in your future, if you are going to head off. I know you love to travel. You're always going somewhere, coming back from somewhere, it seems. I wonder if that will be something that you will be able to do later in life.
Yeah, I could
Yeah.
see that like in my retirement years,
Yeah.
that would be something I would do, go off on different missions. And I think that would be just lovely.
Yeah, for
Really
sure.
enjoy that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Nadia, if there was one thing you would like the dying and their people to know, what would it be?
It would be that just as all of our lives are different, what we do in our lives and our experiences in life, just the same, our experience through the end of life will be unique to us. So I think it's it's important for people to advocate for themselves for what is important to them, what is of meaning to them. So it might mean that there is relationships in their lives that they would like to see completion, or maybe they want quiet home death. Maybe they want to be in a hospice and they don't want to burden their family. Maybe they want their family all around them all the time. Whatever it is, whatever end of the spectrum you're on is okay. So share that,
Mhm.
and don't get an idea in your head that death and end of life needs to look a certain way. So figure out for yourself what it is that brings you comfort, makes you feel safe, secure, loved, and use that as a guide for speaking up, sharing with the people closest to you, the people you love, maybe even sharing, depending on what it is, with your family doctor or anybody who's involved in your care that you meet along the way, what is important to you. Because as people, we all want to honor each other, but sometimes we don't know how. Especially that can happen in families or friends, where family and friends desperately want to be of support and helpful, but it can be very kind of feel very disempowering to watch somebody suffering or feeling unwell and feeling like you have no control over the circumstances. And while it's true that perhaps in the big picture, there are certain things for sure that are not within our control that we just have to accept. There are definitely moves that we can make, and often it's the small moves that can make the biggest difference. So being present and being open with each other, I
I
think,
love
is
that. I love that so much. And what you're naming is really real, especially if people are like in a hospital or in a care setting where they do feel maybe a little disempowered, like it's not their space and they just have to kind of go with the flow and, this is the way it's done here. And I really value what you're saying. It's almost a gift to your friends and family if you can offer direct guidance as to what you need and how you hope to be cared for. And this is really interesting timing because I was just texting with a doula client this morning. She is supporting her dad in his dying, and he just has maybe a week or so to live, and he is in a hospital in Vancouver. And I was guiding her to just exactly what you're talking about. I just said, meet him where he's at with the things he loves. And sometimes the easiest way to start is by thinking of the senses, like bring his favorite blankets, you make his favorite tea, play his favorite music, those types of very simple things that can really personalize the care. And I think it takes a bit of both. It takes that education or permission that you're granting the dying. And I think it can also be something that is supported by the caregivers by even asking about these things. Or maybe if it's someone well, you already know what their favorite tea is or their favorite blankets or favorite pictures to put around the bedside. But those things really do allow people to live life right up until those last moments, because life is always there, right? It's always available until the second it's not. So how do we honor true palliative care and bring life in according to the specific preferences of the person who's dying? So, Nadia, I'm curious what you're dreaming into. So, if you can think ahead to the future, to what is needed to support the dying and their people with more grace, more acceptance, what do you see?
I think more open conversations with each other, more social acceptance of the process of dying, and as strange as this may sound, embracing death as a part of life, like truly embracing it, not just tolerating it, but embracing it. Some cultures have the Day of the Dead, where they go to the cemeteries and they celebrate every year with their dead loved ones.
Mhm.
I don't want to speak for another culture, so I won't go into more detail than that. But we can see that in other cultures that it's kept close to the heart.
Yeah.
And I think that in doing so, we really honor people, elderly people, as well as people at end of life, when we don't place all our value on those thriving, living years. And we come to respect more as our bodies are shutting down. That that doesn't mean what we have to offer is also shutting down.
Yeah.
That there can be so much still right to the moment and then beyond through legacy. I think embracing death is where we need to move forward and just stop being afraid, because it's inevitable. Of course, it's going to happen to all of us someday.
I agree. I do. That I love that idea of turning towards it and embracing it. I think that's a bold statement, but I think if we do honor that it is a natural part of life, then it's so unnatural to turn away from it and not allow it to play itself out. That really is something I'm dreaming into as well. Thank you for that. So to end our time together, we're going to pull a gratitude card. I have this deck of cards from the schooloflife.com, and I am going to just grab a card. They're really beautiful little cards, black and white images on the back, and little statements of gratitude. So I'm going to pull one for us today to balance our conversation on death and grief. It's going to be this one today. And it looks like a picture of someone looking off, maybe over some mountains.
Mm-hmm.
The statement of gratitude says, there are lots of beautiful people we can take pleasure in looking at. Lots of beautiful people. Thank you so much, Nadia, for being here today and being a part of the Living Resource Project. If you want to
Thank
find
you,
out,
Tracy.
oh, you're so welcome. uh, and if you want to find out more about Nadia, you can visit our show notes. I'm super grateful that you're here today, and I'm so inspired by the work that you're doing within the healthcare system to really allow people to meet death with more meaning and through more of a holistic lens. So inspired. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your
I
story.
always enjoy I always enjoy talking with you, because every time we come together, I feel like I walk away with more than I came in with, for sure. It's so
Cool.
refreshing. And I also would love to have you alongside me whenever I speak, because you have this way of wrapping everything up and rephrasing it so beautifully. I just love it. You
Oh,
really do have an amazing, amazing gift.
oh, wow, thank you. I'll receive that right here. Thank you. Thank you. Until we meet again.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy.